Welcome to the Perfect 10 episode of Down the Lines. It is Tuesday, May 2nd. As always, I am your host, Spencer.
And I am Tyler. And on this week's episode of Down the Lines, we're going to get into a little bit of LSU baseball. We're going to talk about some LSU Tigers in the NFL draft. We're going to go in depth with some draft coverage because I don't think you've had enough of it, just like I haven't.
Of course.
Who has, really? We'll do some bump and run, as we always do. But first, we're going to give a little bit of a recap about what this show is about.
That's right. For the first 9 episodes, we were on SoundCloud doing the podcast style version of this show, and it was good. And I think we learned a lot, and we had a lot of things that we tried and things that we liked and didn't like, and we thought it was finally time to bring us out on YouTube. Give us an opportunity for you guys to look at us.
Right.
Unfortunately for you guys, he's on camera, but it's a good chance for us to be more interactive, have an actual face for the show.
Yes.
And so here's how it works every week. So we start with the biggest news in sports, whatever that may be. Most of the time, we'll keep it Louisiana related, LSU, Saints, whatever that may be. And then we'll go on to other 10-ish minute segments on secondary sports news in our world. And then we'll finish with a bump and run.
And bump and run is we're going to bounce topics off of each other, kind of get the other one's opinion of something maybe either obscure or just something that really wasn't talked about in the face of everything on SportsCenter or other sports podcasts or something like that. Try to give you more different sports-related topics to think about for your week after you listen to the show.
So as we get going here on our first ever YouTube edition of Down the Lines, I want you to look for a couple of things. One, the many hand gestures that Tyler will make throughout, because they get repetitive and they get excessive, but they are there. Secondly, we want any feedback that we can get from you guys. Anything positive, anything negative, you can tweet me at Spencer Hunt. My Twitter link is on the screen. We'll make sure that happens.
Yeah.
But anything that we can do to make this a better experience for you guys, just let us know. So the NFL draft was this past week. It was live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, not in the Radio City Music Hall. Did you like them moving it around?
I enjoy them moving it around.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they get the chance to go to every city. Maybe not every city, because not everyone's going to be as great of a turnout. Possibly it might be. I don't know. I could be wrong. But I do like having different fan bases, being able to boo different people, and you have the like you saw. Did you see whenever the Hall of Famer from Dallas came out and said 5-time champ?
That's fun. That against a Philadelphia crowd that is known for being loud and known for being obnoxious. That was a really fun moment, I think.
I think that was one of the highlights of watching the draft.
I agree. They've turned the draft into a watchable experience,
yes,
which it was
absolutely
not always the case.
Yeah.
But the Saints, we had a big draft upcoming, a lot of holes we needed to fill. What were you looking for coming into Thursday of last week?
Coming into Thursday, I was hoping with our number 11 pick that we'd pick a defensive end, and coming with our second pick in the first round, going and getting a cornerback. That was my hope. If it was switched in that way, I would have been okay too. But I was really hoping we would go defensive heavy the entire draft.
So defense was the name of the game, ideally. Obviously, the Saints, one of the worst defenses in the league the last several years, so we need some help there. We started in the first round, and we got one of the things that we needed was a cornerback. We had somebody in the defensive backfield, Marshawn Lattimore out of Ohio State, with our first pick at number 11.
Marshawn Lattimore, many draft analysts and pro scouts would agree he is probably the best ready corner in this draft, and had a hamstring problem, but I don't know how much that would be a big issue, because you go through your test at the combine. That was a good pick right there. If he was higher on your big board than one of the defensive ends that were up there at the time, if you can get a solid day one starting cornerback week one, you go for it.
I agree. I think we get someone that can be a starter day one, And I think the first pick had to be a cornerback or a defensive lineman, and they did it with going with a cornerback there with Lattimore. With our second pick in the first round, we get number 32, Ryan Ranzik from Wisconsin, an offensive tackle. This one puzzled a lot of people, I think.
This one, it sort of puzzled me. I understand wanting to get Drew Brees more protection. He's your franchise quarterback. You don't know how much longer he's going to be your franchise quarterback. But Ryan Ramczyk, he's started 1 year major college football. He's not a day one left tackle starter. So, I mean, I don't know how many people coming. This wasn't a heavy offensive line draft. It wasn't a great offensive lineman draft.
Right. Well, you had your first offensive lineman, probably the best one, Garrett Bowles,
Yeah.
drafted at number 20, which actually is a great story for him with his baby on stage and all that fun stuff. Yeah. But I don't really get this pick here. I really think we had better options. I understand that Zach Strief is 33 years old and he doesn't have an incredibly long amount of time left, but I think wrong place, wrong time for this pick. Not that it won't work out in the long run, but face value, I didn't love it. As we move into the second round, we draft a safety out of Utah, Marcus Williams at 42, which is fine.
It's all right.
Again, somebody on the defensive side, but still no pass rusher. We still haven't gotten there yet. So we go to round 3, pick number 67. We get Alvin Kamara, a running back from Tennessee. What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't like the pick, and as I heard Moscona say yesterday on After Further Review, you can not like the pick but like the player.
Right.
I like Alvin Kamara as a player. I think he's going to fit great with Drew Brees. I just don't like picking him in the third round whenever you need a defensive end, you need pass rushers, and you just got Adrian Peterson. I know you don't have that satellite back, but our third string and fourth string running backs can be that. I don't think that it was a necessity that we needed a running back in the third round. You need to fill your needs.
Well, for the second pick out of 4 so far, it felt wrong place, wrong time again. I like the idea of getting a running back, and I like what they were doing, but again, I think we had bigger needs. In the third round, again, we have number 76. We get a linebacker from Florida who's only started 18 games in 4 seasons, in Alex Arizalone.
Yeah.
What do you? I don't like that pick. He's just not someone that to me has been battle tested. And again, we still have not gotten a pass rusher, and we're 76 picks in.
Yes, he is somebody that, I mean, he's only started 18 games. He's had injury troubles his entire career. I am a huge SEC fan. I did not know this guy's name when we picked him.
Right.
And that's something that's kind of eerie, and I'm not entirely sure about, because if you don't notice him as being one of the best linebackers in the SEC, how do you pick him in the third round with injury troubles? That just looks like another one of the classic Saints pick that in 3 years won't be in the league anymore.
I can't disagree. We get 2 more picks in the draft, and we finally get some pass rushers. We get 2 defensive ends there at the end. One of them is Trey Hendrickson from Florida Atlantic, and then the other one is Alquan Muhammad from Miami. We finally get some pass rushers. It's pretty late in the draft. It was necessary. We needed those guys. I would have liked for those picks to come earlier. It just would have made more sense to me. We could have gotten maybe some higher quality players.
Yep.
But overall, Saints draft, what grade do you give?
I'd give the grade. I mean, the day after, you don't know until 3 or 4 years later exactly how good the draft was. But looking at it from the outside, I think it was a great first pick. It was a decent second and third pick. I'd give it a B minus.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. I think it was average. I think we made good choices. But again, with the Saints, another year goes by where we don't draft a quarterback. So another year goes by.
It
wasn't a great quarterback class. But, that question's still in the back of everybody's heads. What are we going to do in 3, 4, 5 years when we don't have Drew Brees? The pass rushers came later than they should have. I think we had some pretty high points. I think we got some steals for some of these guys. But I don't know if we did anything to to make me feel any better about the Saints as a drafting team, because Sean Payton, historically, they do not draft well. And I don't walk out of this year's draft feeling like, oh my gosh, that problem's suddenly solved.
Right. I don't feel that was I don't ever get very worked up about the draft. I never go in with too many high expectations for the Saints in the draft.
Well, they've given us plenty of reasons not to.
So whenever I see them draft a running back in the third round, it doesn't even surprise me anymore.
Right. That shock value of why do we make that pick, where other teams may have those feelings, we don't have that because at this point we're so used to it.
Right. It's just it's one of those things about being a fan of the Saints. It's something you have to just deal with and take in stride.
That's what happens. So switching gears, we're going to stay with the NFL draft, but we're going to switch away from the Saints a little bit and talk about the other big stories that came out of the draft.
There were a few.
One of the things that I really like to talk about every year is the picks that make you go, what? And now for Saints fans, that's where we live. But for everybody else, it's not always the case.
Right.
So there were a few picks this year that I just really got my head scratching.
Yes.
And the first one was really the second overall pick of this year's draft. The Bears trade up from number 3. So they're sure that they can pick at number 2 Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback from North Carolina. Now, I'll tell you,
Go ahead.
They could have stayed at 3, and I guarantee you Mitchell Trubisky would have still been on the board. Now, he is probably the best quarterback in the draft.
Maybe.
The Bears do need a quarterback, but this just made not one bit of sense to me.
One thing I don't understand in the draft that happens every single year is people move up one spot. One spot. Not only did Chicago move up one spot, they gave away their entire draft for this one pick. So they pretty much took the entire future of the franchise, and they're now putting it on Mitchell Trubisky's back, who probably won't even be ready to play next year.
My favorite part about this is that throughout the draft, the Bears, at one point, when it was said and done, had only picked one defensive player. They only picked one defensive player the entire draft. And here's the literal kicker. That defensive player they drafted has a broken leg. I mean, I think the Saints are bad at drafting. That's pretty rough.
They got an F grade on their draft, just from their first pick. I mean, Trubisky might be a good player,
and we might look back at this and be like, that was the smartest thing that's ever happened.
But, I mean, they gave away so much for that one spot. And there was no rumors that San Francisco was even going to pick Trubisky.
It didn't make sense.
It made no sense
to me. Another pick that got my head scratching, and it really got everyone talking, Joe Mixon at number 48 to the Bengals. And I'll tell you why it's on my list of strange picks. Not because I don't think Joe Mixon may or may not deserve a second chance. I do think that's part of the conversation here. But to me, the head scratcher is the Bengals, who have enough off-field antics to worry about. What do you think?
I mean, I think if anybody can do it, I guess it's the Bengals. If they don't care about the fans apparently, or they don't care about the public's view of them. I mean, I think Joe Mixon's a great running back.
That no denying.
It happened a long time ago.
I don't think
I think if it wasn't for the video coming out, this wouldn't even be a story right now.
I completely agree. Although, to be fair, had the video come out when it first happened, that we might not be talking about it now because Joe Mixon might have never played.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, is it fair? I'm not really sure. But at this point, I'm convinced that the Bengals are, in fact, the team from the longest yard. That's who they are. They are Burt Reynolds and company.
They have nothing but felons on the team. That's what you're saying.
Listen, they're a playoff team almost every year, though. So I mean, whatever. More power to them.
They do what they do. It's all good.
The last pick, my favorite pick of every draft, the final pick,
yes.
Mr. Irrelevant, and it brings me great joy to tell you that Mr. Irrelevant in the 2017 NFL Draft was none other than Ole Miss quarterback Chad Kelly.
I mean, this was so great that I was sitting next to my father, and it came up because we at this point we're not watching the draft, you know. It comes up on my phone, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, guess who Mr. Irrelevant was?" And he's like, "I don't know." So,
Insert name here.
anybody, and like Chad Kelly. And we both laughed for like 10 minutes straight because it's all that we could have hoped for. You know,
it was really a dream come true.
it really was.
I was really happy about it.
There's no
myself.
one better to be Mr. Irrelevant than Chad Kelly.
Right. I wonder if he's gonna go fight some kid in the stands. Keeping with the draft,
Yeah.
but switching to our LSU team, NFL SU, and LSU made another bold statement in the NFL draft again. They showed up well again.
Right.
They finish in a tie for fourth with schools who had players drafted with 8. The only people that beat them, Miami had 9, Alabama had 10, and Michigan wins this year with 11.
Yep.
But overall, LSU I thought did very well. We have obviously Leonard Fournette at 4 going to the Jaguars. I think that's very interesting. Can't wait to see
I think
what
that's
happens.
very good. I think he'll be the face of the franchise there.
Well,
behind Blake
no,
Bortles.
I mean, no
think
doubt.
it'll be. Yeah,
I think
it's good for
there's
him.
an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Number 6, Jamal Adams to the Jets. He deserves that.
He deserves a top 10. Kind of don't like him going to the Jets. I mean, I don't think it was a smart pick for the Jets. They have a bunch of talent in the secondary already. But you don't pass up on a player like Jamal Adams like that.
Right. And now you have Jamal Adams on a team where he can learn from veterans. That's a
Yes.
scary thought there.
Yeah.
Number 27, the last Tiger picked in the 3rd round to make 3. Trey White to the Bills in a pick that everyone pretty much loved.
Yes, everyone liked it. I was actually hoping the Saints would have picked a defensive end 11, and Trey would have fell down to us when we pick him. But
In a perfect
that
world.
wasn't
But
gonna
you
happen.
know
But
Saints don't
I
draft
do-
LSU players.
I do like that pick. I do like him going in the 1st round. He was he started day 1 at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to do.
If you would have told me going into the draft that those 3 would have been picked in the 1st round, I would have totally believed you. Makes sense to me.
Yep.
I think they deserve it. As we go through the rest of the draft, we have Ethan Posick in the 2nd round. In the 3rd round, Duke Riley to the Falcons, Kendall Beckwith to the Buccaneers. 5th round, Godshaw to the Dolphins, and then Malachi Dupree to wrap up the drafted Tigers in round 7 to the Green Bay Packers. The draft isn't where all the LSU players made their teams.
Right, a lot of
We
them
actually
went
had
afterwards.
We had 9
Hours
undrafted free agents.
afterwards.
Right, very soon
Yeah.
afterwards. And the one that stuck out to me of the 9 undrafted free agents was actually the New Orleans Saints.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it when I read it. I guess because they technically didn't draft him, it doesn't count.
Yep.
But the Saints have picked up an LSU player. It's amazing to me. But they did. They picked up Trayvon Durrell, the wide receiver.
Yeah, they picked up Trayvon Durrell. I think it's a great pickup for the Saints. He's a guy who's not going to beat you on dig routes and slants and everything. He's the guy to blow the top off. He's pretty much the same that Devery Henderson was for him a long time ago. It's kind of what they got Ted Ginn for. Ted Ginn's a little older. Maybe Travin could be on the practice squad for a year, learn from Ted Ginn, or break the lineup and play. I think it's good for both parties involved there.
I agree. I think if he ends up staying with the Saints, he's a guy that's a number 3 or number 4 wide receiver, gets 3 or 4 catches a game, 12 yards a catch, those
Right.
first downs when you really need them from somewhere that's not your big playmaker, not your Adrian Peterson perhaps,
Right.
or your Drew Brees. But I think it's a good pick. Agreed with that. Overall, LSU, good draft this year. And I don't see them slowing down anytime in the future.
I don't see him slowing down anytime in the future either. One quick thing that I want to talk about with the LSU, it's going to hurt Saints fans, but Duke Riley and Kendall Beckwith go to the Buccaneers and Falcons, and now the Falcons and Buccaneers have 2 LSU linebackers on each team that we just get to watch year after year.
And the reality is they will be very good NFL football players, and they will hurt us when we go against them, no doubt. We wish them the best, of course.
Absolutely.
However, if their games against the Saints aren't their best, I won't be too upset.
Not too upset at all. But best of luck to them.
Absolutely.
And FLSU.
That's it. All right, keeping with the LSU Louisiana theme, we're going to go ahead and cover LSU baseball. We get the series sweep over Alabama this weekend.
Luckily.
We almost didn't get that third game. That's a series we should have swept. That Alabama team is not good, which feels good to say. But this leaves us at 30-15 overall, 13-8 in conference play, which leaves us just one game behind. There's actually 5 teams in the SEC West that are within one game.
Yes.
It is very close, and it's pretty late in the season. It reminds me a lot of 2011 with all these teams bundled at the top. And the last 3 series are huge. We've got South Carolina, who's 10-11 in the East, and then we've got Auburn and Mississippi State, 2 of the teams that are 14-7 in the SEC West.
Yes, this is very close to the 2011 season, which is the last time we didn't make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But the next 3 series are very winnable series. South Carolina, honestly, they're kind of like us, except for they've done a little bit worse. And then Mississippi State, they have 7 pitchers out for the season with Tommy John.
That's incredible.
That's unheard of.
Right. And they're still in good shape.
And Andy Cannizaro should be the coach of the year.
That is going to be a passionate series, and it just makes sense that it's the one that closes the season for us. I think with it being so close, it makes for an exciting finish, but it also makes these 3. It feels like when a class has only like 2 test scores the whole semester.
Right.
It's really great because if you do really well at the end, you earn that big grade, that big A. But if you don't, you really have the opportunity or the possibility to stumble and fall. So it's really important. What do we have to do as a baseball team to ensure the next 3 weeks go in our favor?
What we need to do the next 3 weeks is 9 games, go 6-3, win all 3 series, or you can lose a series, but you have to sweep a series.
Right.
I don't think we have to win the SEC outright. If we do, that's great for us. That should be a national seed. But if we can finish off 6-3 these next 3 weeks, go to the SEC tournament, have a good run, finish top 4, top 2, go to the championship game, that'll do nothing but give us more confidence. I have nothing but confidence in Paul Mainieri to finish strong during the season because he's done it every year that he's been here. And if we can just finish strong, we started last week with the sweep of Alabama, which is something that we're supposed to do. But being able to actually do it, having good relief pitching, which has not been there all year, the bats just haven't been there. And if you can have good relief pitching, get ahead early, and coast to wins here, I think it's a very strong possibility we finish with a regional seed, if not a super regional, with a good run in the tournament.
The schedule this season sets us up, the way the season's played out, to really have our destiny in our own hands.
Yes. So
all we have to do is be a championship fighting Tiger team, and hopefully that'll be enough to take us where it needs to Omaha and beyond. Okay, it is now time for a little bit of bump and run. We'll start with a New Orleans favorite as of this week, the Zurich Classic on the PGA Tour. They tried something new this year. They did a team format.
It's fantastic.
It's the first one that they've done, and I think it was a huge success.
I think so.
You have these guys that don't ever get to play together, except for say the Ryder Cups and things.
Right.
That don't really count, right? So you put it in a PGA Tour event environment.
Yes, you give them FedEx Cup points.
You get them FedEx Cup points, the money, the trophy, all that fun stuff.
Right.
And you have guys that really, really want it. I think it was a huge success. A Monday playoff after an exciting finish on Sunday. It was really very fascinating, really great television. Do you think they should do more team events?
I don't think they should do more team events because that would take away. I mean, just for personal prejudice, I think it would take away from the Zurich because that's what gives Zurich it being something different, and it's what attracts people to it right now.
Did you just say personal prejudice?
Yes.
Okay. I agree. Maybe not with your prejudice, but I do agree.
Preference, I mean.
But I do agree that it needs to stay by itself. One is fine, and it's going to make the Zurich bigger and better each and every year.
Yes. I mean, there's probably a reason they haven't had a team event in the PGA for so long. Being able to change that and bring it here, it gives it some spice, it gives it some jazz, something that,
New Orleans terms.
People like to go down to New Orleans and party. If you come down to New Orleans and you have something different, something to, give it a little bit more oomph, then it's something that should continue drawing bigger crowds, a couple weeks after the Masters, before the Players Championship, and
it should. US Open is coming up.
It should keep it up there as something that players want to go to. Like 7 of the top 10 were here this year.
That's big.
Maybe 8 of 10 next year. Maybe a few years down the road, 10 of 10 if they're all healthy, if they all would like to come play.
I completely agree. I think the sky is the limit for this event right now. What do you have, sir?
Yes, so tonight the Houston Astros and Texas Rangers played. The Astros won by a score of 8-7.
Ah, love hearing that.
Yes. And so the teams combined for 15 runs. 14 of them came by the way of home run.
So they combined
RBIs from a home run.
They had 15 runs.
Yes.
14 of which
14
were from home runs.
Came from home runs.
Okay.
And the winning run came from an RBI single by Marwin Gonzalez.
Of course, the only one. The only one that wasn't a home run. That's interesting.
Right.
That's pretty good. The best part, the Astros win.
Yes,
that's the best
Astros
part.
beat the Rangers. I don't think that happened last year. Once.
Not once. Keeping with baseball, Adam Jones plays for the Orioles, and they're battling the Red Sox in a series right now. Yesterday they played, and controversy stirred as Adam Jones, when he was at the plate and in the outfield, was greeted with some racial slurs.
Yes.
Boston, not known for being the nicest people, but that is crossing the line.
Right.
So he returns tonight. In his first at bat, the crowd gives him a standing ovation. It does not make yesterday okay, but it is a nice gesture, I suppose. But does this stop at some point?
I don't think it. I haven't heard of this on the major league level.
Right.
I know it happens in college all the time, and I know it happens in high school. I haven't heard it on the major league level since, way a long, long time ago, when like the color barrier was first broken. I didn't know that I'm sure it happens on like clubhouse level or something, like maybe fan letters. I didn't know it actually still happened during the game, which is very surprising.
I imagine this tells me that it probably happens a lot more than one, we hear about, and two, we think about.
Yes, definitely. And sticking with the Red Sox, Chris Sale tonight became the first Red Sox pitcher to strike out 10 batters in 5 consecutive appearances since the great Pedro Martinez did it back when he wore the red and white uniform.
It's impressive. That's impressive.
That's good stuff.
I'm going to close out the bump and run by talking NBA playoffs.
Right.
Isaiah Thomas tonight scores 53 points on what would have been his now late sister's birthday.
Yes.
They're up 2-0 now in their series. Is there any chance we don't see Golden State, Cleveland, Boston, and either Houston or San Antonio, probably Houston right now after their 27-point win over the Spurs? Any chance any of the other teams win?
I don't think there's a chance any of the other teams make it. Those are the best teams by far. All the other ones are kind of dragging along. I mean, John Wall's carrying the Wizards right now.
Right.
And that it's really a one-man show on every team except for the top ones.
I don't disagree. Well, that does it for this episode of Down the Lines. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us next week for more breaking news coverage, sports analysis, and all the fun stuff that we do here. You can follow me on Twitter at Spencer Hunt.
You can follow me on Twitter at thatboycleon.
Until next week, we'll catch ya
Down the lines.